This week on Jerusalem Dateline, terror hits the heart of Jerusalem and the current state of the Middle East. Is the region on the brink of war? Plus, Sweden makes a bold reversal on Middle East refugees, and an in-depth interview on the prophetic history of the Jews' return to their biblical homeland, and a cooking contest in one of Jerusalem's exclusive hotels. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Terror struck at the heart of Jerusalem, but police thwarted what could have been a much greater terror attack near Jerusalem's Old City. Hamas praised the attack and noted that the three terrorists were able to avoid security all the way from the northern West Bank to Jerusalem. The attack came during a routine check by Jerusalem police. One policewoman was killed, the other wounded, when they confronted the terrorists.
Our police officers, in fact, spotted the suspicious individuals, approached them, and only then did they open fire at our officers. The three terrorists were shot and killed at the scene by a fast response by our units. Heightened security is continuing in the different areas in order to prevent any further terrorist attacks.
Police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld said the attack represented an escalation in the kind of attacks.
Well, we've seen over the last 2.5 weeks, we've seen disturbances and we've seen attacks that have taken place, including using explosive devices. This is something that is relatively new. This is something that we're now dealing with. But the situation here is under control. We're talking about a terrorist attack where our immediate response from our officers prevented any further people from being injured.
A number of the terror attacks in the recent wave of violence have taken place here at the Damascus Gate. It's a place that both Jews and Arabs use to get in and out of Jerusalem's Old City. Jerusalem's mayor, Nir Barkat, praised the police action.
Once they realized the suspected people, they approached the suspected terrorists, and indeed face-to-face combat took place, where unfortunately two of the security forces of Jerusalem were shot and knifed. However, a very swift response neutralized the threat, and the three terrorists were killed.
Barkat says despite the current wave of violence, Jerusalem is a safer city than most.
We have the best police in the world, we have the best security forces, and per capita we're safe as London when you really check the numbers. So actually when I fly to America, I pray to come back home safely to Jerusalem, because the crime rates in America are 6 times more per capita than in Jerusalem.
Hamas praised the attack. Much of the violence is fueled by incitement from the Palestinian Authority that calls these terrorists martyrs. They say the terrorists will inherit paradise through these attacks. Because of terror attacks like this, many people believe it really is an important time to be praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Well, since the dawn of the so-called Arab Spring in 2011, the region has gone under profound, if not historic, change. Given this churning, many believe we may eventually face a regional conflict with global consequences. In the wake of the Arab Spring, political upheaval led to frightening developments across the Middle East. ISIS terrorists conquered huge areas of Syria and Iraq. Iran struck a landmark nuclear deal with the rest of the world. Russia's military moved into the region, and the two main Islamic rivals, Sunni Saudi Arabia and Shiite Iran, appear on the brink of war.
The state of the Middle East is a catastrophe right now. The Middle East is on fire.
Best-selling author Joel Rosenberg sees a gloomy picture for the year ahead.
2016 is going to be a very dangerous year because you're watching the complete catastrophic failure of American foreign policy under President Obama. You're watching the Russians and the Iranians try to move into the vacuum of the American retreat. You're watching the Islamic State on offense. You're seeing Iran has been rewarded for its belligerent behavior and now has 2 pathways to nuclear weapons. This is a disaster in the making.
Many believe one of those disasters will result from the nuclear deal with Iran. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas calls it one of the worst diplomatic agreements in U.S. history.
Even if Iran follows the deal to the letter, they are going to be a nuclear threshold state in a mere 10 to 15 years, which, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, is the blink of an eye in the life of nations.
Cotton says it could lead to a nuclear arms race and put the region on the brink of disaster.
We are at risk of entering a second nuclear age, and the loss of life will be counted not in the tens, not in the thousands, not even the hundreds of thousands, but in the millions. And that loss of life could include U.S. lives, because Iran is also developing a ballistic missile program, and they also have terrorist groups that are shown they are willing to kill Americans.
Another storm on the horizon is the brewing battle between Shiite Iran and Sunni Saudi Arabia. The feud hit new heights when the Saudis executed a top Shiite cleric.
Executing this guy is meaning like a declaration of war against Iran.
Middle East expert Michael Barak doesn't foresee war between the two countries. Instead, he expects rival factions around the region to do the fighting.
Actually, we are already witness to the clash between Shia and Sunnis in Yemen, in Iraq, and Syria. It will get worse, and of course.
The final piece involves Russia as a major Middle East player. When the country entered the Syrian civil war, it formed an alliance with Iran. That unprecedented coalition poses a greater danger to the Jewish state.
The alliance between Moscow and Tehran is a match made in hell. And what you've got now is the two countries are now operating in Syria, supposedly against the Islamic State, but it puts them dangerously close to Israel. And the United States, under President Obama, has just thrown up our hands and said, well, you know, whatever, why don't you guys take care of the problem? We are ceding the Middle East over to Moscow and Tehran. This has dangerous implications for the United States and the world and for Israel like we have not seen in generations.
Another consequence of the major shifts in the region has been the massive immigration of Middle Easterners to the West. And Sweden is discovering that wide-open immigration is not all that it's cracked up to be. The migrant situation in Sweden continues to melt down amidst sexual attacks, murder, and official cover-ups. Dale Hurd reports from Stockholm.
With amazing speed, the Swedish establishment's dream of creating a multicultural society has been unraveling almost daily. Sweden has been forced to tighten its borders and plans to deport 80,000 asylum seekers, although the Interior Minister doesn't like the word deport.
We're not planning to deport anyone, but we're planning to that those people who doesn't get their asylum approved should return to the country of origin.
Many Swedes have turned against the nation's refugee program after 5,000 crimes and incidents reported at asylum centers since October, including the murder last week of a 22-year-old relief worker and the cover-up by Swedish police and the media of sexual assaults by migrant males against Swedish girls at a summer music festival last year. A lot of Swedes are angry. They realize they've been lied to. And some are wondering, what else are the government and media hiding from us? Swedish economist Tino Sannindaji.
Yeah, immigrants are committing majority of violent crime now. We have reached that point. This is not reported. A lot of people, in fact, the media will go and say this is a myth. And if you believe this, you're a racist.
Some Swedes feel the government has placed the welfare of foreign refugees above the safety of citizens, especially Swedish women.
I feel threatened because if I walk outside at night, it can happen to me too.
Sunday, Greece arrested 2 men with Swedish passports on their way to join the Islamic State. Poll numbers for the ruling Social Democrats are the lowest in nearly 50 years. And the Prime Minister will be investigated by a parliamentary committee for his conduct last year during the refugee crisis. Dale Hurd, CBN News, Stockholm.
Up next, terrorists are trying to recruit refugees to carry out jihad, but these teachers are standing in their way. As the Syrian refugee crisis continues to unfold, it's the children who are caught in the middle. They're truly the innocent victims of war. Hundreds of thousands of these refugee children face a lonely existence inside these refugee camps. but one Christian group in Lebanon is working to educate these refugee kids. Abigail Robertson brings us that story.
Just across the border from Syria, Lebanon is home to around 4 million people. Since the crisis began, more than 1 million refugees have poured into the country, increasing its population by 25%. That's equivalent to the U.S. taking in 80 million people. More than 50% of these refugees are under the age of 17. Children forced to leave their homes, families, and education behind.
They've been moving from one place to another, seeing all the suffering and living in small tents.
Despite initiatives from UNICEF and the UN, thousands of these children remain out of school. That lack of education makes them prime targets for terrorist groups to exploit and recruit.
I don't want to stay home. I want to learn, because if someone when I grew up talks to me in English or in Arabic, I want to be able to answer.
A whole generation of Syrian children have had to flee their homes to come here and live in squalor and go at risk of going their whole lives being uneducated. But CBN partner Heart for Lebanon is giving these kids a chance to take their situations from desperation to hope. In hope centers located near refugee camps, Heart for Lebanon offers free education taught by Christian teachers.
They start seeing that they are valuable. It does create a big difference in their life.
Denise, a Hope Center teacher, says the key is teaching the kids the Bible and providing a secure environment.
We met kids at the beginning. They were aggressive, they were sad, they were mad, angry, and we start slowly seeing how much their life has been changed.
Many had never met a Christian before attending the school.
We really like it here. The school here is much better than the school in Syria. Besides English, math, and art, we learn from the Bible about Jesus. And our teacher always tells us that we should pray, and she believes that Jesus can help us and help us go back to Syria one day.
Even the prospect of learning brings back painful memories. For students like Batul and her brother O'Day, Syrian school meant harsh discipline and frequent stick beatings.
All the schools in Syria hit kids. Some kids don't understand. Syrian teachers just hit us because they can't take it and don't have patience. I have a heart problem. There are things that I can't do. So the teacher used to put me on the ground. He would hold a stick and hit me while I'm on the ground.
In the midst of everything going on in these kids' lives, this school serves as a sanctuary, telling them about the love of Jesus and promising them hope of a better future. When Omar came here 6 months ago, he told teachers his dream was to become a terrorist.
For the teacher, it was a shock, But I remember I said to the teacher, let's wait and see what later he's going to know after we teach him what we're teaching him and show him love. Now he wants to be a policeman.
Denise sees many of the kids grow not only in their education, but in their relationship with Jesus.
I truly believe that God is at work, and if they come, they will be blessed by what's happening here in this place. Please pray that these kids will be able to meet Jesus before they leave from here.
The children value the addition of Jesus to their education too.
I like learning about Jesus. I got shells from the beach and I made a cross out of shells in my home.
Even Muslim parents appreciate the Christian education and are overjoyed with the compassion Heart for Lebanon has shown their families.
I'm very happy. I'm extremely happy that they're in the school. If we're Christians or Muslims, we all respect each other and we're different religions, but we respect that. We've only seen love and respect from Heart for Lebanon.
It is much better. The teachers are kinder. They are warm to the children, and that matters. This is very good for the children. They learn about a religion other than Islam.
Denise recognizes that by reaching the children, they can also minister to their entire families.
They are so precious in God's eyes, and God has sent them to us. And we need to show them the love of Christ.
Reporting from Lebanon, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Coming up, prophecy fulfilled. Christians helping Jews return to the Promised Land. Long before the fall of the Soviet Union, God spoke to this man about the return of Russian Jews to Israel. CBN correspondent Julie Stahl spoke with Steve Lytle recently about the vision he had decades ago to help the Jewish people return to the Promised Land and how that's being fulfilled.
Steve Lytle, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
What is Ebenezer Operation Exodus?
Ebenezer Operation Exodus is a Christian ministry to help Jewish people from the whole world come home here to Israel. And it was founded 25 years ago in a prayer conference here in Jerusalem in the month of January and of 1991, and still is continuing on today.
What inspired you to start Operation Exodus? Where did the idea come from?
It began with a vision God by His grace allowed me to see in 1974. I was wide awake, and the whole wall became like a giant screen, and I saw the downfall and the destruction of the Soviet Union. And all the Jewish people there came out, got on ships and airplanes, and came home here to Israel. And he said, I want you to go to the Jewish communities in the Soviet Union, prepare them. I'm going to give them an exodus, as like I did in Egypt at the time of Moses and Pharaoh, and you go and prepare the Jewish people. And then I began to find Isaiah 43, Jeremiah 16, Jeremiah 23, Jeremiah 31, and on and on and on into Ezekiel. And out of a country of the north, God would bring His ancient people back home to Israel. And I said, okay, Lord. And then in 1982, here in Jerusalem, I was walking down King George Street, living here with my family, and somebody starts calling, saying, Steve! And it was a man by the name of Gustav Schiller. And so we began what was called Operation Exodus.
Fast forward, you're celebrating 25 years, basically, of this Operation Exodus and Ebenezer Operation Exodus. What's it like here now?
Now, we're 25 years later. We have people from 40 nations here that are involved with this ministry around the world. Where it's going to go from here, it's going to continue to grow and grow, because we still have millions of Jewish people to help to come home from different parts of the world. There's been a 34% increase this year from last year of Jews from the United States of America that we've been able to help to come to Israel. And then in South America, Central America, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Colombia, we want to be able to be that to respond to whatever is needed. If God puts in their heart, go home. If it's persecution that's pushing them, or because Jeremiah 16 also talks about the hunters, and they will hunt them. And so if they're fleeing from them, that we want to be able to help. My prayer has been, put it within the heart of the Jewish people to come to something.
I remember on the boat that I was on, they had horses on the boat. People brought their pets. They brought all sorts of things.
Right.
How have things changed for immigrants coming to Israel?
We operated the ship for 15 years. And by God's grace, over 150,000 we've been able to help to come.
Is there a special call or a special command for Christians to help the Jewish people come home?
Isaiah chapter 49, verse 22 is very clear. It is the duty of the Gentiles to bring the Jewish people home, to carry the sons and the daughters of the Jewish people upon their shoulders, to bring them back here to Israel. This is a function of what the Apostle Paul said out of the book of Romans chapter 15, when he said, look, if you have participated in the spiritual blessing of the Jewish people, now it is your duty to give back to them, to help them materially, financially.
Great. Steve Lytle, thank you so much for joining us today on Jerusalem Dateline.
Thank you, Julie. Good to be here.
Coming up, Jerusalem's Waldorf Astoria chef is inspired by the Bible to create a taste of the Middle East. Jerusalem is once again in the spotlight, but this time for a delicious reason. The Waldorf Astoria here will compete in an elite culinary competition this month. The goal, create a kosher signature dish that will take its place among the other Waldorf Astoria signatures like Eggs Benedict, red velvet cake, and the Waldorf salad. CBN's Annika Kopp gives us a sneak preview.
Waldorf Astoria Jerusalem's executive chef Itzik Barak took his inspiration from the Bible. He hopes his 7-species dish will become the new taste of Waldorf Astoria.
Israel, it's very, very nice country. It's an excellent country. The culinary, it's on the top in Israel.
The 5 competing master chefs come from New Orleans, Orlando, Beijing, Amsterdam, and from right here, the Waldorf Astoria Jerusalem. These chefs will team up with promising young chefs from all over the U.S.
The competition is based on the Rising Star list for the James Beard Foundation, which is like the Oscars of food in the States. They selected 5 chefs, and then they look at the style of food that you cook and pair you up with a chef at a Waldorf Astoria.
Joseph Johnson from Harlem's prestigious Cecil and Minton's restaurants will partner with Barak.
Coming here is seeing the spice markets are very similar to what spices that I use, just really authentic, really bold. So the food of Israel really speaks to me.
But cooking kosher proved to be a challenge.
It's a little bit difficult to understand because you're coming from another world and you don't know about that you don't have, we have a separate kitchen and things like that.
You're told the kosher kitchen is one way, but really being in the kitchen is another way. I just can't set up my cutting board and work anywhere I want to work. A little bit of a mental change, but really great.
Barak and Johnson are using ingredients listed in the book of Deuteronomy.
In the bulgur salad, we're taking some dates, some ginger, some yuzu, some pears, and then a little bit of olive oil, and really mixing it all nicely together. So it's this nice cold salad with this crusted fish, and then we're gonna garnish it with some nice micros and some fresh zucchini and carrots.
And this definitely had that sort of elevated version of the 7 species. But when I was on CBN before, and we spoke about that these are the 7 superfoods of the Bible. They're not just the 7 species of the land of Israel, but they're superfoods.
Celebrity chef Jamie Geller believes the dish is destined for greatness.
The dish was fantastic. It's the winning dish. I know it. I know it. I'm predicting it. It just was incredible because I thought that the plating and the beauty and the execution was totally befitting of a Waldorf.
Despite the tough competition, the chefs are confident.
But at the end, we were able to develop a really awesome dish that I would serve in my restaurant, that chef would serve here at the Waldorf Astoria.
I told JJ, everybody should bring his ideas to the dish, his influence, and I think that, guys, we're going to win. We're going to win. Yeah.
Annika Kopp, CBN News, Waldorf Astoria, Jerusalem.
We hope they do well in the competition. That's it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us throughout the week on Facebook or Twitter. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.